And welcome back once again. Earlier this week, State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli released a very eye-opening audit that found the supposedly cash-strapped Port Authority had doled out huge amounts of overtime. In fact, according to the Comptroller, 5,300 of the authority's nearly 7,000 employees were paid almost $86 million in overtime, most of which went to PATH and the public safety workers. This comes as the authority board is poised to vote on a very unpopular plan to sharply increase tolls and fares on its 4 downstate bridges, 2 tunnels, and the PATH train. Now, some lawmakers are calling on the governor to reevaluate the authority's leadership altogether. One of those lawmakers is Long Island State Senator Charles Fuschillo. He is joining us now from Hofstra University in Hempstead. Senator, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me on, Liz.
So you are the Senate Transportation Committee chairman, and today you put out a statement saying basically it's pretty much time for Chris Ward, the executive director of the Port Authority, to go. You blame him chiefly for the authority's woes?
Well, I blame the entire administration. You know, you had mentioned that Tom DiNapoli's report was eye-opening. To me, it was jaw-dropping. You know, when I see $85.7 million in overtime for what, maybe 85% of the employees, $2 billion in overruns, and you know, his other report back in July, $1.3 billion of undocumented, unsubstantiated contracts and service agreements. You know, Liz, if this was private industry, the entire commission, the board, the directors, whatever you want to call them, they would have been fired with those cost overruns. And who's watching the store?
Yeah, I mean, the reduction actually, there was even a 3% reduction. That's what's so amazing about this. The Port Authority said, we want to cut our overtime costs by 20%. That was in that was what they called for in their 2010 budget. And they actually only managed to get there by 3%. But to be fair, I mean, they've got this huge construction project going on. It's called Ground Zero.
Right, and we want that completed, but again, Liz, if they were running your company and they came to you and said, hey, we're $2 billion over, you know, give us $2 billion more, you would say, what do you mean you're $2 billion over? Where have you been the last couple of years? Why didn't we know about this? Why didn't we make corrections? And all this is coming out now. There's a problem there, and I just stem it with the problem with the management.
But don't you think that this is actually a larger problem about authorities in general? It's just so hard for state government to get a handle on what happens in the so-called shadow government that is the authority world?
Yeah, the answer is absolutely. You're correct. But let's start now. Why do we keep having these authorities overrun and overrun? Who pays in the end? The taxpayers pay. And in this case, the commuters are going to pay with higher tolls. So it has to stop. Look, we got a new era in this state, as you know, and Governor Cuomo is really highlighting a lot of these inequities. And if we can eliminate a $10 billion deficit without raising taxes and fees, cut spending, then so can these authorities. So what I did today, Liz, is I put out a statement that I want both governors to look at the management of this authority and take a hard look at it. And if they have to go, then change it. Change it.
So
and the Board of
You're saying, just to be clear, you're saying not just the executive director, but also the head of the authority board. I mean, because, as I forgot to say, this is a New Jersey, New York entity, right? Because there are actually bridges and tunnels that span the Hudson that connect these two states. So Chris Christie actually appoints the head of the board, while the New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, appoints the executive director.
Right, and the new board chair came in earlier this year from New Jersey, but the executive director's been around a few years. There's a couple new commissioners that we appointed from New York. They need to take a hard look at the management. The governors do, Governor Cuomo, Governor Christie, and say, look, we got to put the brakes on this. We can't afford these $2 billion overruns. By the way, Liz, this is what we know now. You know, what's going to come out later? You know, when Comptroller DiNapoli does another report, or the Port Authority now all of a sudden is going to expose whatever else is out there. It has to stop.
Okay, here's the problem, though. There's no lockbox on these funds, right? The MTA and the Port Authority, they're used more or less like piggy banks a lot of the time. So you're actually banking on $380 million in Port Authority funds to help plug up the hole in the MTA's capital fund. I mean, if you guys, not you personally, you know what I mean, if the state government would stop doing that, then maybe the Port Authority could get a handle on its cash.
Yeah, but that's part of it, Liz, and you know that, and I don't disagree with you at all. But these numbers are staggering. If you looked at Comptroller's report that he put out early July, and you take a look at the consulting contracts, look, they have a $1.2 million contract to an electrical company to change light bulbs with no justification.
Right.
They have more consultant employees in the engineering department than they do employees of the Port Authority, and it goes on and on and on. $33 million contract in real estate services, but they have a real estate department. I mean, come on, let's really take a look at this, and if this is going to be the authority that's used as an example where Governor Cuomo and Christie are going to start these reforms, then let's do it.
Okay, do you believe in this fare hike, there's been a lot of sort of consternation about this fare hike. People are very upset. It's expensive. I mean, you're talking about up to $15 for people who are paying cash to cross certain bridges here. It's a lot of money for people who are commuting. However, do you believe that Governor Christie and Governor Cuomo knew in advance about this and thought, hey, you guys put that out there because we know there's going to have to be a fare hike and it'll be lower and we'll act all surprised, like a bait and switch, if you will?
You know, I don't believe that. I've read all of that, and the style of this governor is he'll attack an issue right on. And I think if Governor Cuomo truly knew about this, he would have stopped this a long time ago. So I don't believe all that media hype, to be honest with you. I mean, because it seems that some fare increase is probably going to be approved. It's just not going to be as high as the Port Authority initially proposed. And this is like the time-honored tradition. It's almost like budget negotiations. You guys come in low, the governor comes in, or the governor comes in low, the legislature comes up higher, and somewhere in the middle you meet, right? Well, the Senate usually comes in lower.
Much lower.
I don't know about the Assembly. much lower, Liz. But, you know, look, let's get back to these fare hikes. You know, that's a problem, exactly what you had just said. It's a problem that I think we should deal with. If tomorrow, when they do these fare hikes, whatever they're going to do, if they reject their original proposal and come in with a lower proposal, it shouldn't happen right away. There should be more public input. There should be more public hearings. And if they do that tomorrow, we're going to talk about doing some legislation to change that, to require, if they're going to amend their original proposal, they have to go back out to the public. But this is a time, Liz, and you've reported this for a long time. Unemployment is at an all-time high. People can't afford anymore. I mean, that's the bottom line. And more people, as we know, in the last decade are moving out of New York State than any other state in the nation. This just adds to just turning this state back into the wrong direction when, you know, the governor and the legislature had a very successful session to pull it back. And if they go on this path, it's just another step in the wrong direction.
Wait, Senator, do I understand you clearly? If, in fact, the board, the Port Authority board tomorrow votes to increase fares at all, or just what has been proposed by the leadership of the Port Authority, that very high increase, what if it's less than that?
Well, I'm saying that if they amend the proposal, which I suspect they may do because there's been a large outcry by both governors and the public at their hearings this week, but if they amend it and even go to a lower fare increase and approve it, we're going to introduce legislation to tell them that if you're going to do an amendment at a board meeting from an original proposed increase, you have to have public hearings. You can't just do it arbitrarily.
But that doesn't help. That helps you going forward, but you can't ex post facto change that. Right. Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
I also,
you know, we're not in session, of course.
Right. Well, to that end, actually, I wanted to ask you, are we going to be seeing you back here after the PEF results in September 27th? And what's your reaction to the contract that CSEA approved?
Well, saving the state $37 million this year is tremendous. I applaud Danny Donahue for doing it, and obviously Governor Cuomo, who's taken a real hard line in his negotiations, realizing that the people of New York State can't afford it anymore. And PEF, I believe, is September 27th. They're going to vote on their contract. Liz, there's been no talk about coming back. I know you miss us. I know you want us to come back. But there's been no discussion as of this date, the taping of your show, for us to come back.
Yeah, because there are a number of things that are still hanging in the balance, including those health care exchanges that the Assembly did pass and that your House in the end did not. Has there been movement on that, do you know? Or do you think that the majority is willing to take that up again?
You know, I think it's going to have to be taken up at some point. We're going to have to decide what direction we go in, but time is not of the essence for us to come back and do that. You know, in September or October, there still is time.
And just before I let you go, I also wanted to ask you, there's a lot of talk that the legislature will move the 2012 primary up till June, which really seems to put you guys in sort of a bind. And now there's talk about splitting the session so everyone can go home, do the budget, go home, campaign, come back, and do tough policy stuff?
I'll tell you, that may be rumor mill up there, but I haven't heard that at all. And there's been no discussions that I've been part of to do that. I've never heard about a split session. Interesting concept, but I haven't heard about that at all.
Okay, well,
it's very interesting.
Well, and it would keep everybody up here on their toes. You know, we get bored without you up here, and we just tend to sort of spin things in our own heads. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, that's why I came into Hofstra today to do this interview, to say hello and talk about some issues.
And to remind people that, yes, the Senate does still exist. Okay, Senator Fuschillo, I very much appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Liz.
Did it.